doing, what they can do better.
I think before we sort of start some of it, I thought what came from Saint was really refreshing. We both work with lots of agencies, and actually you'll probably see some similarities between the slides, not just that actually we both did ours at about midnight, so there's some similarities there. We shouldn't all do this stuff at the last minute though, that'd be really bad with client work. So anyway, Matt.
Right, so anyway, I'm Matt. I'm going to start by sort of seeing who the audience is really. So who of you guys work for an agency or are an agency? Social media, advertising. Who of you guys keep your hands up? Who of you guys have launched Facebook apps? So who's actually, of the agencies, who's actually got successful apps? By this we mean sort of over 10,000 users, would you say? So we've got 2 guys left, 3 guys. But you guys are the same agency. That doesn't count. So right, have we got any indie developers here? Guys who are building stuff in their bedroom, one-off guys? 2. What have you guys got? Over 10,000 users, would you say? Yeah.
What do the rest of you guys
do? Yeah. Shout up. What does everyone else do? Affiliate network.
PR.
Cool.
Okay, right.
Interesting.
This might be off target then. Right, okay. Right, so let's start then. Right.
So, I mean, following on very much from what Sam was saying, it's not about eyeballs, it's about people. And I think all too often, if you look at what's going on within agencies, particularly ad agencies, who I go and do a lot of work with, they're still talking about audiences rather than actually communities of purpose, individual people who act as the fulcrum of their own little community of purpose. And this is a real problem because you can't treat these people as an audience. You have to treat them as a collection of people who will share stuff. And this gift economy that you talked about and that Henry Jenkins, if you read blog posts, talk about a lot. His famous phrase is, if it doesn't spread, it's dead. And it's very, very important. But it also relates to another very powerful thing that as app developers and as web developers we've had since about '96, and that's analytics. And analytics in our world is very, very different. It's graphs that are truth. You know that Cadis's milkshake does bring voice to the art. And so, you know, sort of, this is something that actually, if you look at lots of agencies, they used to do things like Nielsen scores and comp scores and things like that. And those are statistically insignificant. If you look at the sample size on any of these large metrics to do with TV watching, whatever, you normally find that the number of people they sample is less than the error bars within the sample that they pick. Whereas we actually know the stuff. Doppler have a lovely slide on this which says, we know this is true and we've got the fucking stats to prove it. And it's great. And all of us have that power. But it's something that we find that agencies really don't get that much. This is the next problem in our book, really.
So, translation. What we tend to work with agencies, it goes from us to the agency to the client, and it changes in the middle. It's like Chinese whispers going both ways. Very rarely are we allowed to speak directly to the client. This isn't the truth in every agency. Some of them bring us to the table, some don't. Most of the time, it's like Chinese whispers. And that sort of comes on to the next problem, which is over-promising. So we will say one thing, this will start off as a donkey, it'll become a pony, and then it's a unicorn. And by this time, us as developers are going, that's just not physically possible. We can't do it. We never promise that because we know it can't be built. You can't do certain things on social networks. We can't rebrand the homepage on Facebook. We know we can't do this, but we've seen pitches where this is being sold. Doesn't always happen, but it happens about 80 to 90% of the time. The other one is timelines. We quite often have to try and deliver a pony in tomorrow. And it takes time and to not only build these apps, but also to scale the user base. Audiences grow over time. We normally find 6 months as a minimum to start getting a real user base together. And you need to plan these things ahead of time, get the developers ready, and just get the whole strategy up and running. And 9 times out of 10, we're running around in circles because the agency's only just contacted us. So that comes on to the next one.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you know, coming back to deadlines, what we normally get is things like companies phoning up saying, oh, we've got this film, and there's a case for me from just last weekend, which launches on May 12th, and I got the call somewhere about May 6th, and they wanted all sorts of crazy stuff done in 5 days. And, you know, it went live, but it went live just as it was finished, and it wasn't tested properly. And I personally really hate that. I'm probably under-attentive about these things. This is my next real issue, which is hijacking of memes. So, memes are these sort of social gifts that are passed around from person to person. Like people going and doing silent discos and stuff like that. And what makes them cool is the people who invent them and the people who go to them. It's not T-Mobile grabbing it and trying to subvert it and actually making these people practice for 2 weeks and then go to Liverpool Street. That's not cool. It's tedious. It's really tedious. And then they compound it a tiny bit by when a journalist on a blog that talks about brands has uploaded a video capture, they have it removed from YouTube. And he was praising this ad. It's just crazy. They've lost this concept of shareability all the way through. It's not all agencies, but there are problems there. And you have to believe that if you're going to do anything nowadays that deals with streams and deals with people and deals with social media, even if there are rights issues, clear the rights before you make the advert so that you don't have to issue a takedown notice to YouTube when people want to share it because they like it. Which comes along to this one, which is that viral is a myth. There are very few things that have ever really gone viral on the internet. And they're normally things that have been originated from a person rather than an organisation. And very few things do now. They're orchestrated plans about media buy-in, how you start seeding things, giving it time. There's some wonderful blog posts, a guy called Andrew Chen, who I encourage you all go and read, an amazing blog post called Jumping the Shark, where he looked at the on-ramp and the off-ramp for applications and how many people you need to keep on an application to try and actually get growth on it. And basically what he showed was that if you have 50% of your people leaving every week, you only ever get a curve that does that rather than a growth curve. And it's stuff that is missed all the time. People think it's about getting people onto the app initially. And Kevin Marks from Google has a lovely phrase like this, which is the hay fluffy disease, people develop an immune system. And it's totally, totally true. So now we get to the next bit of the brand. Lots of ad agencies in particular in this space are, in my opinion, dinosaurs of the mass media age. They haven't really moved on in the way that people like Saint have. They still think in terms of audiences, and they probably still think in the glory days of North and White, where the Christmas show in 1977 got 28 million viewers. Something that's never been beaten for light entertainment, will never be beaten again. You now have fragmentation of the audience, you have catch-up TV, you have digital TV, you have online viewing, you have iPlayer. You will never get audiences like this again. However, over time you might get audiences on the web, but how will you get them? Well, by thinking about what people do there. This is Clay Shirky from a film called Us Now, which was actually the crazy thing that I had to do 5 days to get live, the online release of. But Clay says something really important, which is what's happened in the 20th century was an anomaly. We're actually seeing a reversion to a very common and very deep human pattern of doing things because we care for each other. If you pick apart any social network deeply enough in terms of anthropology or in terms of sociology, what you find is a structure very similar to a village. And so actually start thinking about how humans interact with each other. I think it's wonderful that you're trying to sort of add metrics to it. The rule of thumb that I often think when I'm building social things is, if I had a conversation with you, would it feel right or would it feel strange? And that's basically what Clay is trying to say here. But there's no way I'd go into a conversation as an advert. It sounds odd every time. And so why people go into social spaces purely as an advert, I really have no idea. So,
a quick note on another one. The best way I found somebody describe social networking and what works on there is a friend of mine who has nothing to do with this space, but if you were handing out t-shirts with your brand printed on it, would it work? Would you see people wearing them down the street? Because if you're a toothpaste manufacturer, sorry if there's anyone here, you wouldn't see those coming by. But if it's a cool brand, people want to be associated with it, they're willing to put it on their Facebook pages and their profile pictures. It's like a t-shirt. That's how they treat this stuff. So if you're willing to wear a t-shirt somebody's giving you for free, that's a pretty good brand to fit on Facebook. And we see lots of guys trying to force brands on there which just don't fit. I'm not saying there isn't a way of forcing a square peg in a round hole. You can batter it hard enough and it'll go in, but it's not worth it. Some stuff fits, some stuff doesn't. Work with what fits. And a lot of guys just don't get that yet. That was the pause. We forgot this bit. Is it?
Time for a big word. So disintermediation. It's basically what happened to the music industry. Sort of as soon as the world went a bit more digital.